भूतै पंचाभि आरब्धे देहे देहि अबुधो असकृत् अहं मामेति असद्ग्राह करोति कुमति मतिम्। भूतै पंचाभि आरब्धे देहे देहि अबुधो असकृत् अहं मामेति असद्ग्राह करोति कुमति मति। भूतै पंचाभि आरब्धे देहे देहि अबुधो असकृत् अहम मामेति असद्ग्राह करोति कुमति मतिम। Translation purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. By such ignorance, the living entities accepts the material body, which is made of five elements, as himself. By such ignorance, the living entity accepts the material body, which is made of five elements, as himself. With this misunderstanding, he accepts non-permanent things as his own and increases his ignorance in the darkest region. Purport. The expansion of ignorance is explained in this verse. The first ignorance is to identify one's material body, which is made of five elements, as a self. And the second is to accept something as one's own due to a bodily connection. In this way, ignorance expands. The living entity is eternal, but because of his accepting non-permanent things, misidentifying his interest, he is put into ignorance, and therefore he suffers material pangs. Om Agnanatimirandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chakshurmitanyena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Sri Chaitanya Manabhistam Stapitamena Bhutale Swam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swa Padantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Juta Padakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavansya Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagana Lagunatavitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Pariyana Saitam Shri Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Pradan Sagana Lalita Shri Vishaka Vitamsya He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhano Sute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Vanchakalpatarubhascha Kripa Sindhu Bhayavacha Patitanam Pavanevyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare. Hmm. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare. The words again. Bhutai panchavi arabde dehe dehi abudo asakrit aham mameti asat graha karoti kumati matim. By such ignorance, the living entity accepts the material body, which is made of five elements, as himself. With this misunderstanding, he accepts non-permanent things as his own and increases his ignorance in the darkest region. So, we see in this chapter, Lord Kapila is instructing on the movements of living entities. How Mamai Vansho Jiva Loke Jiva Bhuta Sanatana, the part and parcel of the Supreme Lord, who is infinitesimal but qualitatively same as the Supreme Lord. Quantitatively, it is different. It's infinitesimal while Lord is infinite. But the living entity in its constitutional position is Sat Chidananda. He is eternal, right? He's full of bliss and full of knowledge. But we see how Lord Kapila is instructing on the movements of the living entities that the Jiva's entrance, growth, and sufferings in the womb. That he enters into the womb, grows into the womb, and goes through various sufferings in the womb, right? And then he starts praying within the womb to get out of his miserable condition. Then, after he comes out of the womb, right? That's from the 22nd to the 31st verse, which includes these words. How he is in ignorance, right? Where he's misidentifying himself with the body which is made of 5 elements. Bhumi, Apo, Nala, Vayu, Khamamana. Yeah, Bhumi, Apo, Nala, Vayu, earth, water, fire, air, and ether. Right? Bhumi, Apo, Nala, Vayu, Khama. Right? Earth, water, fire, air, and ether. Which is made of these 5 elements. He's misidentifying the body as himself. Though he is the soul, part and parcel of the Supreme Lord, he is misidentifying with the body. And as a result, the pains and pleasures of the body he is associating with himself. And it is feeling painful, it is having pleasure. When the senses are satisfied, he is thinking, oh, um, that's the misidentification. And that's the ignorance, avidya, ignorance. Elsewhere in the 12th chapter of the third canto, it is explained about these 5 levels of ignorance. That ignorance had 5 levels. Sasajagra, Andatamishram, Atatamishram Adikrit, Mahamoham cha moham cha tama cha agyana vittavo, vityaha. Right? Where the living entity in the material world has to live, were created to what? Yeah. The first condition of material existence created is forgetfulness of one's real identity. Right? That is his condition. Forgetfulness of his real identity. And that's why he is identifying with the material body. That's the first condition. Why is he's forgetting it? Right? Because unless the living entity forgets, it is impossible for him to live in the material condition of life. Right? He's right in the prison. So unless he forgets that at one time he was out of the prison, right? He's not going to enjoy, so-called, in the material world by misidentifying himself if he is in knowledge. He can pray just as we see prayers of Sukdev Goswami right in the womb. That, oh, let me just remain in the womb, let me not come out of the womb. Right. Or prayers of Prahlad Maharaj, right in the womb. Right. So he, unless a living entity forgets his real identity, it is impossible for him to live in the material condition of life. Right. Uh, that's with this misunderstanding, he accepts non-permanent things as his own. Right. Uh, so as soon as he comes out, he identifies himself with the body, and then his ignorance increases, where he accepts non-permanent things as his own. Right. And then further, thus one develops a false sense of ownership or for things offered by material nature. So he develops a false sense of ownership for things offered by material nature. The ownership, oh, this is my family, this is my nation, this is my my, this is my house. Right. So his ignorance further increases. He accepts all this false sense of ownership for things offered by material nature. That is called no, Mahamoha. The first one is tamas, where he is in ignorance, having forgotten one's spiritual identity. Then is moha, illusion. One begins to misidentify oneself with material nature. That is thinking the self to be the body, moha. Then mahamoha. One develops a false sense of ownership for things offered by material nature. That's mahamoha. Different levels of ignorance. And further than that, whenever there is obstruction to the enjoyment of these objects, anger arises. Right. Whenever we see any obstacles in our enjoyment, in material world, enjoyment is never permanent. When our senses are satisfied, we enjoy. When the senses are not satisfied, we are in distress. And when we see any obstacles, right, krodhat bhavati samoha, right, Gayata Vishyam Pumsam, Sangat Tesu Upajayate, Sangat Sanjayate Kaman, Kaman Krodha Abhijayate. Initially, we contemplate on the sense objects, develop attachment for the sense objects. Then uh, we get lusty desires to enjoy the sense objects, but our desires are never fulfilled. So what comes? We develop frustration. Frustration leads to anger. Krodha Bijayate. And then we see Krodha Bhavati Samoha, Samoha Smriti Vibrama, Buddhi Nasa, Pranashati, we fall down. Right. In this dark region of the Mishra. Whenever there is obstruction to the enjoyment of these objects, anger arises, the Mishra. And therefore, there is a great struggle for existence. And under Tamishra means great struggle for existence where we start fearing death. We're completely Smriti Vibrama. Smriti Vibrama Buddhi Nasa. Intelligence is lost. There is no more any glimpse of our identification, of our real identification, that we are part and parcel of the Supreme Lord. And we question who is God. No, we don't even question. We are so much in ignorance that we just feel that hey, if somebody talks to us about God, who is God? No, I am everything. Who has seen tomorrow? Let me enjoy life king size right now itself. Right. So that's our nature. So those are the 5 levels of ignorance which was explained in the earlier chapter, in the 12th chapter. Tamas, Moha, Mahamoha, Tamishra, and Andatamishra. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur equates that with the Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, right? By correlating it to starting with avidya, which is ignorance. Um, Ignorance leads to false identity that I am the body, asmita, and ultimately attachment to non-permanent things, which is afforded by material nature, and raga, that's raga, and then dvesha. We become repulsive of those objects when our desires are not fulfilled. And then again, fear of death, abhinivesha. Right? So these are the five levels of ignorance, and in these five levels of ignorance, we go on increasing our ignorance by identifying ourselves with the material objects, material world, and forgetting our real position, right? Forgetting our real position that we are part and parcel of the Supreme Lord. Somehow, Brahmanda Brahmite Kono Bhagyavan Jiva, a fortunate soul, gets an opportunity where he comes in contact, right? A fortunate soul gets an opportunity where he comes in contact um, with a devotee of the Lord, and Brahmanda Brahmite Kono Bhagyavan Jiva. Guru Krishna Prasadapai Bhaktilata Bija, who sows the seed of devotional creeper within our heart, which that seed starts sprouting into a creeper, and ultimately, when it gets more nourishment, right? When it gets more nourishment, that creeper starts growing into a wonderful plant. Ultimately, it goes, penetrates this material world, and takes shelter at the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord. Right? Takes shelter at the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord. So it's gone, but that jiva is Kono Bhagyavan Jiva after wandering from to so many material universes. Right? After wandering to so many material universes. And only by that Bhaktyamam Abhijanate Yavana Tattva. Only by the process of devotional service one can understand the Supreme Lord. One can understand his permanent nature and not be attached to the non-permanent nature, which is this material body. Right? The whole world is attached to this material body. Even an animal is attached to the material body. Right? Ahara nidra bhayamaitunam. Eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. It's common, even between an animal and a human being. Right? So what is so different about a human being? A four-legged animal or a two-legged animal than from human being becomes the same if they do these four activities of the material world: eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. The only difference in the human platform of life, he has higher intelligence where he can inquire about dharma. He can inquire about dharma, his real nature. Right? Dharma, dharma naina adhika vishesha. Right? Ahara nidra bhaya maitunam dharma yesha adhika vishesha. Dharma naina pasubhi samana. No, uh, without dharma, we are pasubhi samanam. We are equal to animals. But otherwise, on the human platform of life, we can understand. We can inquire about dharma, our real nature. Right? And remove this covering of ignorance, avidya, which is covering us. Right? Which is covering us. Okay. Are there any discussions on this? Still few minutes left. Is there any discussion we can discuss? Any reflections?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Only after this lecture, I was thinking that Prabhupada has made a nice, he gave us a gift that we should raise our children in a Krishna consciousness. We should send him to the Gurukul school so they get Krishna consciousness. So he has done so good. So that way we keep continuing giving our generation to Krishna consciousness.
Yes, very
Because
much.
we have to raise from the beginning that children has a Krishna consciousness. So Prabhupada's mission is so great. I was appreciating while you were talking. He has done so nice guidance, give us that we can do all those things.
Mm. Yes, Pataji. That's why it, the sanskar, the purificatory process starts right. Even Sri Prabhupada talked about Garbhadan sanskar. Garbhadan sanskar starts even before conception. What consciousness? Even the conception should happen. And mentioned that in ISKCON, Garbhadan sanskar should be by chanting 50 rounds of Hare Krishna Mahamantra before conception. So that we have the right consciousness. Right. So it starts, that purificatory process, it starts right from Garbhadan sanskar. Right. And then it goes all the way, at different levels. Right. Otherwise, we have no knowledge of it. We are in avidya, ignorance, and that leads to havoc. Moment we get agitated, we have a conception. At times, we don't even think about the sanctity, whether in what ashram to have that conception. Get attached to illicit activities and ultimately dig our hole to go into these darkest regions of hell, Tamishra, under Tamishra, darkest regions of hell. Right. So, Srila Prabhupada very nicely mentioned and reflected on. His instructions are there, all in his books, for us to read. And the devotees, he has established his entire mission in which his instructions in form of his books becomes a law book for 10,000 years. It's going to remain throughout. It's mentioned the first 10,000 years of Kali Yuga is the golden age, where at least we see, right in our lifetime, we could see how things are going down and down and down. The influence of Kali, the onslaughts of Kali is increasing and increasing and increasing. Right. So those influence of Kali can be counteracted. Kali Kale Nama Rupa Krishna Uta. Krishna has appeared in this Kali Yuga, right in the form of his holy name. And this easiest process is prescribed in this age of just chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, just chanting the holy name. right? Just chanting the holy name, one can go back to Godhead. One can Cheto Darpana Marjanam, the heart which is completely covered with ignorance, with so many unwanted um, desires, right? That gets removed, right? Yeah. So Srila Prabhupada's contribution has been immense. We cannot even fathom that what he has contributed in its fullness, right? But more we take this uh, life ring, so to say, if we are drowning in the ocean, we try to hold to these life rings which are thrown by devotees who are lifeguards to save us drowning from this material ocean, right? The lifeguard's duty is also immense. The devotee's duty is immense. They don't worry about their own life and at times go on saving out of their full compassion. They always think about, oh, how I can save this drowning person, right? Which is Srila Prabhupada's contribution. And he left a legacy where, but just by following the process, uh, others can become devotees of the Supreme Lord instead of misidentifying themselves with the body and no, um, and further make other devotees. পৃথিবীতে আছে নগরাদি গ্রাম সর্বত্র প্রচারে হইবে মোর নাম জন্ম সার্থক করি পরোপকার. They make their life good, but at the same time para they make others life good also by uh, distributing this message, transcendental knowledge to others. Thank you, Mataji.
Yep, Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai Shri Prabhupada ki jai. Thank you. Okay. If any further discussion, we can check into Nityam Bhagavata Sevya group. Thank you very much. We'd like to wish you all a safe and Krishna conscious day and week ahead. And we'd like to offer our prayers to the Supreme Lord by chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Jai Nrsingo, Jai Nrsingo, Jai Jai Nrsingo, Praladesha Jaya Padma Mukha Padma Lingam. Ugraveena Mahavishnu Jalantam Sarvatomukam Narsingam Vishanam Bhadram Mityam Mityam Namiham. Narsinga Bhagwan ki jai, Prahlad Maharaj ki jai. Let's offer our humble obeisances to all the assembled Vaishnavas. Vancha Kalpatarubhascha Kripa Sindhu Bhaivacha Patitanam Pavanebhayo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Vaishnavinda ki jai, Granthrat Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. By the way, today is also an important day. Srila Prabhupada arrived in the USA on this day, September 23rd. Right? So he arrived in USA on September 23rd. So thank you, Mataji, for remembering Srila Prabhupada on this day. Yes. Okay. Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna. Thank you, Hari Bol.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Bol, Hare Bol.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Bol.